3, 2, 1.
Mr. Steve Crowell, welcome to the High Button podcast, sir. I'm happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be number, what is it, 450, 470?
No, 429?
429.
429,
That's great.
I
I
think.
feel privileged. Yeah. I know my buddy Berkey was probably number, 1, 7, about every fourth number. So, I'm privileged to finally get in here at 429.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. You're impossible to talk to at the rink. You're talking to someone left, right, and center. So to have you here for a solid hour, just for you to myself, I'm happy to pick your brain.
Okay, good. We'll go with that.
Well, it's true. Like you're a well-known individual in Atlantic Canada when it comes to the beautiful game of hockey. A lot of people trust your input. You know every side of it: the coaching, the general manager side, the event planning side. You're a man of many traits when it comes to the game of hockey over the years. Would you agree?
Well, it was, I think I was 15 years old. I was captain of a midget team back then, and there was an incident in our dressing room with a coach, and it was that day I went home and said to my parents, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. At some point, I wanted to get in hockey and try and change that element that was displayed that day, and it sort of started from there. So I was coaching a year later, novice hockey or whatever, and went on from there. It's been like 48, 49 years ago. So
Where did you grow up?
in Dartmouth.
Wow. So the incident happened there.
Yeah.
And then from there you said, okay, I got to try to change the culture a little bit of hockey.
Yep.
No way.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Where were you, forward or defenseman?
I played both.
Oh, yeah?
I played through minor hockey. I spent years flipping back and forth, and gave you a better appreciation, I think, as a player, for both positions, and certainly coaching. You understand both sides of the game, so, and how important the D are to the forwards and vice versa.
Wow. So being a successful coach and being a successful manager in every aspect of the game, I guess you could say, did that help you being a player, learning how inside a dressing room works and how a coaching staff works, just seeing the other side of it?
Well, I think that, and I think it's, I go back to my upbringing with my dad and just, the rules of the house. And he coached me early on in younger years, and I just saw how he not only treated me as a son, but I was just another player once we walked in the dressing room. Even going to the rink, like we never talked hockey on the way to the rink. We might have had a few discussions on the way home that were kind of comical, but it was basically once we stepped inside the rink, I was just another player, and I just saw how he treated all the kids.
Well, what was it that made your dad so special to get like a response out of the kids? If you're a coach, all you're looking for is a response out of your player. What was it about your old man that you thought, oh, my dad knows how to get a response out of the players he's coaching?
Well, he certainly had a passion for the game. He was a captain of a championship team at Acadia in 1950-51. Long time ago. It was their last championship prior to Tommy Coolin winning in I think 1990.
No way.
Yeah, that was quite a stretch there. So he was the captain of that team, and he certainly had a passion for the game. And I know at that time, coming out of university, he had some offers to go and try out pro, and went on to be a phys ed teacher instead. He started out as a phys ed teacher, because the pay was about 3 times what a pro hockey player was getting back then.
What year would that have been?
Like 52, 53.
So a phys ed teacher made more money than a pro hockey player back?
Yes. About 3 times. It was about 6,000 versus 2,000.
Get the year?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. So he had a passion for the game. He was an athlete. He's was one of the best amateur golfers in Canada in his day. Certainly in Nova Scotia was, he was on the Nova Scotia Wellington Cup team several times, finished second in the national seniors twice. So he was a real, athlete. I know he's in the Acadia Hall of Fame for hockey, and twice, once as an individual and once as a team.
So that's incredible. First of all, like having a mentor like your old man to be able to maneuver away in sports, that's kind of cool. But I'm still kind of caught up on the salary of a gym teacher compared to a pro hockey player. So right now you have a full-time career in hockey. Back then, how did you maneuver your way into a career in hockey, even if it wasn't in the NHL? But
Well, there was many jobs.
Yeah?
I was on the Jethro Bodine path, where every day I was a different guy, a brain surgeon, whatever it was.
whatever paid the bills.
Whatever paid the bills. Most of the jobs I didn't like, but I did them to the best of my ability, always looking or waiting for the hockey opportunity to come. And you think back to the 80s and 90s, and compare it to now, there was no opportunities in hockey. You were making your extra money through hockey schools or specialty clinics or whatever, or coaching clinics. But now it's exploded into several different areas. For a young guy that's looking to do this for a career, in Atlantic Canada, there's all kinds of opportunities. So I'll give you an example. In 97, I finally got my break.
97.
I had offers in 92 to go coach in the OHL, but I just met my wife at the time, my wife-to-be, and that sort of put a kink in those plans. But in 97, I got an opportunity to coach the Truro Bearcats, coach and general manager, full-time job, first full-time job in the Maritime Hockey League. It was kind of funny because I'm at the office every day at 8 o'clock, and but there was nobody to talk to within the league. If I wanted to make a trade, I'd have to do it either at lunchtime or after supper, because all the guys were working. They were doing something else, and all telling me that they're envious of
your full-time position.
Of my full-time position. Now you look at the 12 teams in that league, and they're all full-time.
Wow.
So it's really come full circle.
We kind of jumped ahead a bit. I want to go back to the Dartmouth Subway days. I looked at your elite prospect. It said your first year was 88, being the head coach.
87, 88. Yeah.
87, 88, you're the head coach of the Dartmouth Subways.
Yeah.
Kind of a quirky question, but how did the sponsorship come about to get Subway?
Well, we were actually, the year that I took the team over, it was the previous year, it would have been the Dartmouth Forbes Chevys, and that was their sponsor right from the start back in the 70s. We had a couple years there where we were sponsored by the senior Dartmouth team, Ed Malloy. So we were called like the honeybee something. I can't remember.
Dartmouth honeybees.
Yeah, it was like the honeybee syrup, corn syrup, or whatever. And then Dartmouth the Thrifty Car Rental sponsored us for a few years, and we were actually, when we hosted the Nationals in 1992, we were the Thrifty Car Rental Kings, and then I think it was the year after that, or 2 years after that, we became the Subways, and that was just a guy that I went to school with, who had a couple of Subways in Dartmouth, and I spoke to him, and he went to his big buying group over here in Halifax. I guess all the Subway owners meet once a month, and sort of came together, and we showed him like clippings of. We kept all our newspaper clippings back in the day.
Okay.
And we had it in binders. We showed him all that, and we said, "Now, what would that cost for you to have Subway in all those titles?" And he was saying it's ridiculous. It would be like $70,000. So, so it was a great. The beauty of that sponsorship, and even now, or even my time in Cole Harbour, we were the McCains.
Yeah.
Or now with the Subarus, like everybody identifies your team with that name.
I made it on the intro. I made a mistake. I said Subways, but then I corrected myself. Said Steel, but
yeah.
You just talk about a beautiful partnership that's lasted for how many years back in the day till when was the last year? 2000 and
for the Subways?
Yeah.
I think it was I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say 2010 maybe.
What a run.
Yeah.
So just, and obviously the best player arguably of all time wearing that jersey too.
Yes.
It's just the Subways. It's a historic name in hockey.
Yeah.
Not even just Atlantic Canada, around the world. The Dartmouth Subways, the Subways.
Well, we still get the odd person referring to us as that, and out in the hockey world, even a conversation I had with somebody from Notre Dame there a couple of weeks ago. They said, "You guys are the Subways, right?" And I said, "No, well, that was 12 years ago or 13 years ago." But yeah.
Steel Subaru's listening. All right, guys, change the conversation. Change the conversation.
Oh, and well, listen, this has been an outstanding sponsorship from them, like a real community-oriented company. I know last week they just signed on Ellie Black.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So she's driving around in a Subaru now, and they're sponsoring her. And first class car that I've got. It's really a nice ride.
Yeah, they drove one out on the Moosehead game the other day at the first intermission. Their new SUV. It looks nice.
Yeah,
looks real nice.
I know. My coaches are all driving them too. So,
oh yeah.
I think we've sold 15 to 20 cars through the parent group for
no way.
Yeah, our staff over the life of the sponsorship so far.
Steel Subaru. Hello, how are you? I need a new car. Let me know.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
I guess the major midget league back when it was U18 league right now, when I was coming up, there was so much envious of the guys that got to play in that league. And you look at names like, the Max, I always think of Steve Dixon. I think of Alex Panozzi that played for the Subways. I think of Sid, obviously. There's so many names coming up through that major midget league when I was younger that I used to idolize before they moved on to the Mooseheads or the Olins, whatever it was. And as a kid going to some of those games at the Sportsplex, it just seemed like there was an intensity there that was just unmatched on any other sporting event that I could watch, because it was just the rinks were smaller, so the intensity, you felt it more, maybe a little bit more than a Moosehead game, whatever it was. But back then, the major midget league, maybe the politics and applying to these teams and making the teams, how did all of that work when it came to, I guess, recruiting? It seemed very competitive to be on these major midget teams, and how did you go about that?
Well, there's been lots of transformation over the years. When I first came in the league, it was basically open season in Metro, and there was a few tweaks from year to year. I can remember the Nova midgets. They wanted to try to split up Dartmouth Halifax because they thought that would weaken. That would prevent somebody from all the best players going to one team or the other. Cole Harbour wasn't in the picture at that time. So they developed these zones, and of course, if you were in an open zone like Truro or Amherst or whatever, you could go wherever you want. And of course, when they did these zones, there was an open zone from Port Hawkesbury to the Seal Island Bridge in Cape Breton.
Okay.
Right, so the Antigonish team was Pictou and Antigonish, basically. So, that was sort of their way of trying to weaken us. So I went in. I was doing hockey schools in the city, and I went in, and there was a kid from Port Hawkesbury that had relatives in the city and wanted to come in and play. I said, "Yeah, great. You're an open zone guy. Come on in. We'll bill you for the winter." Well, that ended that relationship. Or that rule, because the guy in Antigonish, didn't want that rule in anymore, because we could go in and get kids out of his backyard in that open zone. So those are little things that happen from year to year. But in the last 10 years, it's been a territorial thing now. So there's 6 major Bantam teams, or U15 teams, and we each get 2. And the kids in those areas have to go to those designated teams. So we have Dartmouth and Bedford, and those kids that are playing at the U15 level, they have to try it with us first. And then we have until August 31st to either sign them or they're released.
Okay.
From my end, every team does it differently. But from my end, if I see a kid's not going to be good enough to play on our team, we let them go. As soon as we get that determination, it's usually done way before August 31st. But when you get down to those last 1 or 2, and those kids they're going to find a home, the ones that don't make it. So
I just remember coming up. It's like, oh no, I got an invite to this camp. Oh no, I turned down them to go to this camp. It was just always a conversation coming up with major midget organizations. It was just such
Yeah.
not a shit show, but just a decision. Okay, where do I go? Who do I talk to? And
Well,
it was always because kids back then didn't have agents at that young. They might now. I don't know.
Oh, geez, they got agents in U15 now, so
No, they don't.
yes.
You 15?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So the thing that I think that morphed into what we have now is that kids were getting committed to in August of their last year of bantam. So they still had another year, in bantam hockey, and they already knew where they were going to play midget. And that was, that's you just couldn't do that. That's
a lot.
And kids are going in, they're playing for their teams all winter, and all they're doing is talking about where they're going to play next year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was a thing, big time.
Yeah, the thing I didn't like about it personally, especially once I was getting a little older and I was living in Truro, was that you had to go down and now meet with 10 or 12 prospective players to try to convince them that your program was where you wanted to go, and of course Dartmouth or Halifax and then Cole Harbour were doing the same thing. So it just begot a little bit of a
Out of hand.
It's out of hand, and then the kids are now deciding where they're going to play, and at the end of the day, just cut all that out and just at that point all the programs were pretty good, and just let them pick a zone and cut all those side deals out.
Yeah, that's fair. It got worked out. Coming up when I actually played in the league, even before, your name always floated around. Oh no, like Steve coaches them. Like you were with Cole Harbour then. And like, oh no, like Steve's their coach, great coach. He does this, he does that. When other people are talking about you and they talk about your greatness and things that you've accomplished, sure it matters. But at the end of the day, what do you think your secret recipe is to, one, lasting this long in this game, and two, being a head coach for as long as you were? What do you think your secret recipe was?
Well, I make no secret of one thing. We play all our kids from the day that they arrive. I mean, they're paying a lot of money, and right up until probably the Monktonian, maybe even a little after that in some years. But at least up until the Monktonian, every kid on our team rolls out that door, power play, penalty kill.
No way.
5-on-5. We roll 4 lines, and it's just then we start to decide who's going to get into the specialty team roles, and you're hoping that those that aren't on the power play are killing penalties, but still 5-on-5. We're rolling them out the door right hopefully right through to the playoffs. And where the benefit is that you really, there's so many kids, and I'll look at our team this year, and our coaches are still following that philosophy. I look at our team this year, we started out, we had 10, 15-year-olds. We had another 5 kids that were first year in the league. And a lot of nervous kids, a lot of skilled kids, but very nervous. And other teams were playing to that. They were being physical with us, and and I would start off the first game of the year, we'd go first line, second line, third line, fourth line, not to put a tag on a line, but the other teams would go first line, second line, third line, first line. So now their 17-year-olds and their veteran players are now playing against our kids that aren't ready really to play in the league and contribute. But to me, you're doing us a favor. You're doing us a favor because you're now giving those kids experience in a situation that they normally wouldn't. And there's 2 schools of thought on that. People say, well, you don't want them to fail. Well, I want them to battle and fail, because then that's the only way they're going to learn, And then come playoff time, any one of our players can play 5-on-5 in a playoff game. At least in the first 50 minutes, they can play against anybody else's line 5-on-5 and not hurt us defensively. So that's the growth that happens over the course of the winter. And then, this team, I think we were 3-9 at one point this year. We just set a record on Sunday.
Yeah, Mark was telling me what is it?
16 wins in a row.
Yeah.
And in our last 24 games, going right back to the last 2 games in the Monktonian, we're undefeated in regulation, and we've lost 2 games in overtime. To Pictou, that knocked us out of the Monctonian, and then that own goal there last week in the Ice Jam.
I didn't want to bring it up, but
Yeah, so it's we've still got 5 games left, I guess, in our season, and we're just trying to play our best hockey, and we're not worried about streaks or anything. But it's a testament to the program that now these young kids are starting to contribute in other ways that they couldn't. They were trying to survive October and November.
yeah.
Right, and now they're comfortable in the league, and now their skills are coming out.
Is it, you've been in the game for so long, it doesn't really matter what you're doing in life. If you're in the same organization, same business, you start to see patterns. Have you seen a team similar to this year that you've seen in the past and go, okay, this is kind of like 97's team where we were really young and then after Christmas this started to happen? Was there a similarity?
Yes, I had a team in Cole Harbour one year. I think we finished in 5th place. We struggled early in the year. We started to play well after Christmas. I think we were 7-1 in the back half after the Ice Jam or whatever the tournament was back then. But we beat the 4th place team. Then we knocked the 1st place team off, and we lost, I think, in the league final. But that team just grew. It was incredible, the growth in that team, and I see the similar thing. And we had 10 first years on that team as well.
No way.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with Marty? Like when you guys are, like picking a team, and maybe there's an argument over a kid. How does the relationship work with, no, I like this kid, I can see his development and something might happen? Like, how's your guys' relationship? Because he's been the head coach there for how long now?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
What's that like? Because you stepped down and then he came in, correct?
Yeah, my last year, it was 3 years ago, my last year, I probably coached 50% of the games.
Okay.
And it was a transition period where I was mentoring, the coaches to take things over. I think Jordan was there at that time too, and I always tell the funny story of I hadn't coached for about 5 weeks, and then the team was just weren't playing great, and I said, look, boys, in 2020 I'm gonna come back and coach in the Ice Jam, and of course, we went undefeated and won the tournament, right? And Marty said, yeah, the big white horse is waiting for you outside, right? So,
man.
Anyway, but we have a great relationship. He was one of my captains back in '92.
Oh, was he?
We won the bronze medal at the Air Canada.
Okay.
And I often reminded him he was a little bit of a renegade when he was younger.
Was he still surfing back then?
I don't know what he was doing away from the rink, but he's grown up a lot. Let's just say that.
Okay.
And in fact, that year I think I took the A off his jersey for some
off-ice antics,
just to straighten him out a little bit. But he ended up being a star guy at the Nationals, and he got lots of opportunity. I think he ended up in Gatineau or Hull, I think it was called back at the time. So.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
How important is it to you to work with people that you like?
Well, I think the beauty of coaching is when you can see something that happens on the ice. If I'm working with the forwards, or I'm changing the forwards, but I'm the head coach, and something happens on the ice with a defenseman, when you can look down at the other end of the bench and he looks at you and goes, "Got it."
Oh, right? No way.
Oh, yeah. And
the chemistry's there.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether it was Bob Mayo back in the early days or Craig Campbell in my days in Cole Harbour, and now Marty. Like we had that relationship that it doesn't happen overnight, but you just sort of you see the game the same way, and I'm trying to put my influence on them as how I see it. But once they see how it works and that it does work, then it's almost like you're thinking exactly the same way and you're seeing the same things as they occur. So that's a bonus.
That must be a goal too with your players. Like when a player comes to the bench, he knows he made a mistake. You don't even have to tell him. It's just a look.
Yeah. Well, the odd time, back in the day, the odd time you'd have somebody, you give them an error correction, and you're doing it as nicely as you can.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the program, where they can make that mistake several times and still get put back on the ice. But the odd time, you might have somebody look back at you and say, "Oh, that wasn't me."
What?
So, oh yeah, no, I don't think that was me. So
See, this is why you love video, eh? Because now you can.
I take my notepad out and I have a little game card and I take it out and I look at the clock. 2:37 left in the second. This play happened and he wasn't him, right? So when I get to video, when I go home that night, I go home and watched all my games that night. Drove my wife crazy. But I would go right to that point in the game. Like if I had a kid that questioned something, I would go right to that first, before even the first period. Yeah. And then I get to that point and I was right. And then so I would, on the next video session, we would have 8 or 9 clips. It's not a long process, but we would 8 or 9 clips. We get to that clip, and I would start to play it, and then I would freeze it, and you could see the kid's number, clearly see his number, and I'd say, now I have to qualify this next clip, because let's just say it's Johnny Smith, now somebody has gotten into Johnny's sweater, because Johnny told me on the bench, right? He told me on the bench it wasn't him. So we have 2 problems here. A, we have to find out who this is because he made this mistake, right? And he's just about 3 feet high, and everybody's laughing as we roll it. But it's a nice way of, I guarantee you that the other 19 kids are going, I'm never going to question him on the bench, right? But it's just a nice, funny way of getting your point across that, don't question us. And we're probably right.
That's awesome. Yeah, Johnny Smith. I never liked that guy. That's funny. Yeah. No, that's the power of video. We can go back to it. To we talk about it all the time. It's great. Power of video. See your mistakes and see some highlights.
Yeah.
Are you a garbage can kicker?
No.
I was gonna say I couldn't picture you kicking anything.
You
seem like a calm.
The guys that are in there losing their minds every 5 minutes, I guarantee you within a month, most of your athletes are shutting down. They're going, oh, there he goes, he's going off the handle again, and they don't even know what you're mad at. And half the time, if you're doing it on the ice at a practice, it's just wasted time. I get a chance to go all over the province with not just my teams over the years. I also, while I was coaching major midget hockey, I was coaching my kids coming up too. So I was a pretty busy guy because I was the ice scheduler in Truro, so I would schedule my kids' games around my own team's schedule. And anyway, but when you go to the rink, there's a practice going on, before you're getting there 2 hours before a game, and might be down in Bridgewater or something, and there's some guy out there that starts a drill, and the drill itself is terrible, which is not the story, but the story is that before every kid's even gone once in the drill, somebody's made a mistake, and instead of keeping the drill going, he's losing his mind, and having a 7-minute tirade on the bench or on the ice about what they did wrong, and that's just wasted time. And there was even 3 kids probably at the end of the line going, well, I didn't even go yet, right? I didn't even get a chance to go. And then what happens is they go, okay, switch sides. We're going to do it from the other side. So they switch sides, and of course, the 3 shy kids who didn't even get a chance to go, guess they're at the end of the line because all the bullies are
the front.
Are at the front again, right? And they're going to go do it wrong again. So because they didn't have a clue what he said. Yeah.
Waste of time.
Were
you a drill guy in the dressing room? Write it down. Here's what we're going to do, or were you on the ice? Because you talk about wasted time.
Well, I was a master course conductor for the NCCP for 37 years. I probably certified 7,000 coaches in Nova Scotia.
Stop.
Yeah. So it's that's a big
responsibility.
There's a lot of in those courses as an instructor. There's a lot of time put to running a great practice. What are the components of a great practice? And I tell them I have a rule that you're not at that board more than a minute. Like, here's the drill. If you don't get it, go to the end of the line. Don't go first and screw my drill up. But here's the drill. Now, I would usually go over the first couple of drills in the dressing room before we went on the ice. But a lot of things like just puck management, like making sure that you maybe run, the first 5 or 6 drills in midget, you're just trying to get them going. They're only 6-minute drills. You're trying to really get them going. But the puck management in those drills, like drills 1 and 2, the pucks are in the same place. It might be opposite corners, but when you switch sides, the pucks are already over on the other side, just the way the drill was designed, right? So you're not, and while you're at that board for 90 seconds or 60 seconds, your assistants are setting up whatever has to be set up.
Yeah.
They're not listening to the drill; they know the drill.
Yeah.
Right now, Marty is with technology now. Marty sends out the practice plan in the afternoon or the day before for tomorrow's practice.
To the players?
To the coaches. So the coaches all know it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the players are getting it or not, but I know I get it.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see what they're doing, what they're planning. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Are you an innovator at all when it comes to drills? Have you invented like your own drills?
Well, I learned, I went to a coaching symposium back in the early 80s.
A symposium?
Yeah, it was in Turku, Finland. It was an amazing 12 days of probably 7 days in a classroom. Then there was a break where you could do some traveling around, and then you came back, and then it was like 4 or 5 days on the ice. And the on-ice guys were like young Finnish players like Tikkanen or Jari Kurri or whatever. There was a lot of
Olimata.
It was fast. It was fast. I mean, this is 1982. 82, yeah. Scott Mellenby was there because his dad was Ralph Mellenby, who did Hockey Night in Canada.
No way.
Yeah.
So what were they teaching you? Just new invented drills?
Well, they had a lot of stuff where they would say go, take, like Scotty Bowman was there. All of the guys back in that day that were somebody coaching were there. Herb Brooks was there.
Herb Brooks.
Yeah. Viktor Tikhonov, the old Russian Red Army guy. Ludek Bukak, who coached the Czech Republic. He would have been, I think, the coach in '76 in the Canada Cup. Red Berenson, Pat Quinn. So Pat Quinn was actually the way they had the hotel set up. It was speaker student with an adjoining door.
Yeah.
And my adjoining door went to Pat Quinn's room.
No way.
Yeah, and he set me up big time. The first night we were getting in, his wife was there with him, and so I was in room 2 and he was in room 1, and actually to get into the room they gave you like 5 keys. It was like getting into Get Smart's apartment. So I'm fumbling with the keys to get them, and I feel this presence over my shoulder, and I look up, and it's Pat Quinn, like 6'7", huge guy. And he says, and who are you? And I said, well, I'm Steve Crowell. Yeah, and where's Steve Crowell from? And I said, well, I'm from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. He goes, I know where that is. He goes, you're one of those goddamn Maritimers. And I said, yeah. And he says, well, we're going to be here for the next 12 days, and I'm going to tell you right out here, day 1, there's no partying on this floor. Do you understand? I said, look, no problem, Mr. Quinn, no problem. So I go in, get my clothes put away, and next thing you know, Danny Flynn's with me, and he's got Red Berenson, and he's coming in on my bed and jumping up and down on my bed like a kid. He goes, I'm meeting Red afterwards. We're going to get together and talk hockey. And he goes, who's your roommate? And I go, I got Pat Quinn, and he's an asshole. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on my adjoining door. I said, oh, my God, did he have a glass up there or something listening to me? Right? So I open up the door, and they're standing there with a Hawaiian T-shirt on, a sombrero, and a 40-ouncer, and he's saying, anybody want a drink? And his wife is rolling around in the bed laughing. She says, he set you up. So needless to say, we had quite a week.
That's awesome.
But Scotty Bowman he used to carry recipe cards in his pocket.
Recipe cards?
Yeah, and he had a rink. He had a picture of a rink on one side, and then the line part was on the back side. And he said I would walk into a rink and I would steal drills from watching a peewee practice, and I would say I could take that drill, I could add a second wave, or I could tweak that drill a little bit, to make it for an NHL team, and that's how I built my drill library. And then I would take it back and put it in the recipe box file it under transition or defensive play or whatever it was, puck handling. That's how we built this drill. So I started at that time, doing
Building
that.
your own recipe box.
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
and then over the years, I was the development coordinator in Truro, and I developed a binder for every team in the association, from novice or IP right through to midget. And in one of the sections in the binder was a complete year supply of drills, specific to that age group.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Steve. That's you took the recipe from the best in the world.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
the best.
there were things in there about parent meetings and just developing. There was a Dr. David Scott. He's a sports psychologist at UNB. He's a professor at UNB, but on Fridays, he says he zips out of his professor's outfit and he goes somewhere in the world to work with, different sports teams.
Oh yeah.
And I brought him into Truro to talk to the coaches in Truro. This would have been in the early 2000s, because they had a major problem with, playing their star players up there for 30 minutes a game. And so he just came in and talked about what happens to a kid when he doesn't play. And he went through a 3-stage process. And I did that. I basically stole the Cole's Notes version of that and put it in those binders.
That's cool.
To try to show the coaches that, you take a kid that's really happy to make your Pee Wee AAA team or your Adam B team or whatever it is, and he's really happy that he made the cut, and then he goes from that to, by March through this progressional mental thing that you put him through by not playing him. He doesn't even feel like he's as good a human being as the next kid in the dressing room. It's a real shame what happens, the transformation over the course of a year. So that's another thing that sort of led to my philosophy of play your kids. Now, it's U18, and, we're at the stage right now where, we get to the last 10 minutes of a game, and Marty and those guys, they can, if a kid's not going that night, he may not see much ice in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But they've had, they've had 35, 40 games this year with the tournaments to
figure it out.
And we're still working with them. That's, I will still do individual video with some of those kids to help them out.
To this day?
To this day. I'll bring my iPad and I'll videotape somebody's shifts.
Yeah.
And then break it down and then sit down with them for 5 minutes just show them some of the areas that, I get them to answer the questions. Like I'll roll the tape and say, now what did you see there? Well, I got below the puck. I said, right. So we lost the battle. Now you're behind the puck. Right?
You got to be defensive side always.
Right. So it's just little things like that. It's not done in a derogatory way. It's done it's a teaching, and there's usually one of the coaches in there with me too. So.
Cool. This is a serious question. The invention of email obviously has helped tremendously in business and in every aspect of life of being able to communicate with people. But for coaches, I don't know. I just think you got an email for a coach is good and bad. It's great because you can reach out to certain people can get back to you, but then there's also complaints, especially at the level you're at. When it comes to email and all that, you were coaching in an era where there wasn't email. What's your thought process on that of I guess navigating through making sure everyone's happy? Because at the end of the day,
question.
no one will ever.
Yeah. I tell my parents at the start of the year, at our level, it's time to let your kid deal with his whatever's bothering him. If he's not happy with whatever, not happy with his line mates, or he thinks he's not getting enough ice time. He thinks he should be getting more ice time. We've had that odd complaint. And at the end of the day, that kid's not going to have to worry about that, because he probably will be on your top 6. But I guess my thing is that they're, when they go to major junior or wherever they're going to go beyond us, if the coaches are getting calls from the dad or mom or whatever, there's a good chance that guy's going to be playing somewhere else in the very near future. Like, they just don't put up with that. So I guess in our motto, I tell the parents, I don't want to hear about ice time. You don't email the coach.
Oh, you set like to this day you
Yeah.
set that like
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't email the coach. And when I was doing it myself, and there was no email, I'd say don't call me about who you're playing with, and ice time, because our program works and everybody's going to play. But if there's a problem in the room, if there's a bullying issue in the room, then by all means, if your son feels uncomfortable talking to the coach, you can call me, and we'll get to the bottom of it. If it's something that we feel has to go outside of our organization, with all these new committees that they have now in place, then we'll do that. If it's above my pay grade, I'll definitely reach out to Hockey Nova Scotia or whoever and get to the bottom of it. But I don't want to see you giving hand signals to your kid on the ice. Trust me.
What?
Oh yeah, and don't coach your kid. Don't coach your kid on the way to the rink and on the way home. And I'll tell you why. Because most of you as dads, even if you played the game, most of you played in the 80s or 90s. Now, if I was to go and bring out my drill book from the 90s or the 80s and show you, I'll give you an example. I did a bantam hockey school in New England, Bob Mayo and I, back in the mid-'80s. And Jeremy Roenick was in it, Ted Donato, Tom Barrasso. It was the best bantam players in the New England area. Well, I stumbled across that book when I moved to Truro. That was in 97. And I threw it in the garbage because after I stopped laughing, I should have kept it. And they thought it was the greatest thing at the time. They thought it was the greatest drills. But the game changes every day. And if you think you're finished learning, you're going to be left behind. And, I often tell that to my coaches, just don't sit on your laurels, because somebody's going to come up with a new way of doing things, and it's going to be better than what's being done right now. Mm-hmm. And you only have to look at the red line coming out. Look at how the game changed. And I'll go back to that Finland trip. I mean, there was a U.S. college coach at that, and they had no red line back then. And he was talking about all the stuff, and we were just basically saying, well, that's great, but unfortunately, we're all playing with a red line, so we can't do that stuff.
Yeah.
But, that's and then the rules are changing in the game, too. I was listening to Martin St. Louis on a podcast this week, and he was talking about when he played and all the hooking and grabbing and clutching, and he says, man, I don't even know where I would have gone statistically if I didn't have to fight through all that.
Yeah.
The way the guys have to do it now.
Yeah. It's true. It changes every day.
Yeah.
One of the most coolest revolutions in hockey is the power play breakout, I think, when the centerman swings low as the defenseman brings it up and then puts everyone back, and the centerman just like the Matthews breakout on the power play. I think that's one of the coolest plays going. Oh, McDavid too. Well, that guy doesn't even need to swing. But it's the revolution. We were having this conversation the other day about the game. It's just ever evolving. We talked about baseball. We're I don't think baseball has much room to improve or revolutionize. What's the word I'm looking for? Adapt, become. There's no you don't see baseball changing.
Right.
Football, you don't really see it changing. Hockey, if you look at a game 10 years ago compared to yesterday, the game is completely different. So there's just so much more room for growth in hockey, I think, in all of the sports that are being played right now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with it.
Well, I remember watching the Montreal Russian New Year's Eve game from the 70s, and it was dubbed one of the classic games of all time.
Yeah.
If you ever watch that game, if you ever see that up on NHL Classics,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, get the tissue out, because you'll be laughing. You'll be crying. You'll be laughing so hard. Probably a really good major junior team could have whipped both of those teams right now.
That's crazy.
Just the speed and the skill.
Well, during the pandemic, Sportsnet was showing old games, and that's where I kind of just sat down and I'd watched an old game from the 70s. And you look at it, and it's just penalty after penalty after penalty right now. So it's just completely different.
Yeah.
And even if you, like I said, if you look at a game 10 years ago compared to now, it's different. Yeah. Speed, the way they're able to handle the puck, the way they're confident with the puck down low. Just totally different. It's an awesome game. Throughout your career within the game, of hockey on the coaching side, general manager. What's one aspect that what's one thing that you've learned about the game that maybe you didn't know at the very beginning? Could be on how to deal with players, on how to deal with parents, on how to deal with the actual scheduling of the game. Like, what's one aspect that you went into it and go, oh, I didn't know that would come up in this game?
Oh, that's a tough question. Again, I could just revert to what we were just talking about. I mean, when you go to the rink and you don't think there's something to learn. Yeah. I don't care if I'm just going to watch a game. I mean, you're going to see something. The beauty of the game, and baseball has a little bit of this too. If you watch baseball consistently, you will see something in baseball that in a game that you've never seen before, and you might never see it again. And that happens in hockey all the time. And you may with parents, for the most part, parents are really good. If their kids are happy, the parents are happy. And but you'll get the odd crazy complaint out of left field, and you're saying, wow, like I never even saw that coming. Like what's next? Is Mars going to run into Jupiter or something? like this is crazy. And one of the things I always say at our parent meeting is, if you're up there giving your kid hand signals and coaching your kid, and I said, let's just imagine that your dream is that he's going to play for the Mooseheads. He's going to be at Scotiabank Center in front of 8,000 people the next year, right? That's your dream. That would be your dream draft. So now you are on a Friday night, in the heat of the battle, and there's a whistle, and the kid's coming off, and you're giving them you're giving them the crossed hands or whatever your signals are, right? And you're up on the screen, on the big screen, right? And now there's 8,000 people in the stands laughing, like, who is that guy? And Cam Russell's up in the press box with his hat pulled down, looking at his head scout, saying, "Who drafted that guy?" Like it just doesn't. I'm making a joke out of it. Yeah. But it's just that's how insignificant what you're teaching your child. At that point in his career, like he's not thinking for himself anymore, and probably what you're teaching him is wrong because it doesn't jive with what the
coaching system.
There's many different ways to play the game, and all successful. And if you have one guy out there that's doing his own thing, it doesn't work. Doesn't matter which one you're playing.
Well, what's the number one characteristic in a kid that you see go on to be successful? When you see those successful kids come through your programs and they go on to do not just great things in hockey, but great things in life, like what's that one characteristic you see?
Well, they have a real passion to learn. They mom and dad are totally supportive, but they're not overbearing. They're letting the kid get through the muddy waters with hopefully with a good coach, but they're letting them find their way. And I look at the two Barron brothers. I had Morgan in Dartmouth. He came into our team. He started out. He was on the fourth line, and if the play came around to his side of the ice, he was a left winger. And if the play came around to his side of the ice, we never got the puck out. So it took him almost till Moncton. I think he had one goal going to the Monctonian. And he wasn't on the major Bantam team. He came from the Halifax team, and they had Barrett Decision and kid that went down to the States there. They had about 4 or 5 star players that were above him on the depth chart. So, he was a solid player. I think he was the captain of the team. And, but he wasn't like this can't miss prospect coming into midget. And, we just showed him a couple of things. We worked with him almost on a daily basis to show him a couple of things just in that scenario alone of how he could slow the game down in his mind. So he was just getting passes and just banking them off the boards. He didn't know if the defenseman was pitching. Yeah. He didn't know if the third man high was in his kitchen. He was just panicking and getting rid of the puck. And, we did 2 things for him. And he was standing still. So we just got him to come down a little bit lower on a routine breakout. And now and as he's opening up, he's looking up the ice and taking a picture. But it wasn't an overnight thing. It was video. stopping the video, look like here you are panicking again, and there's not a guy within 40 feet of you.
And was he getting frustrated with you guys
No.
telling him? Like he just
No.
like, oh, that's how you.
Yeah, no, he was great. He was like a sponge.
Yeah.
But the second half of the season, I mean, the guy's on one of our power play units, and and then the second year he's the captain and one of the best players at the TELUS Cup. Like he was awesome in his second season, just totally transformed.
Did you get a call from Cornell saying, "What's this kid like"?
No.
No.
He went to St. Andrews College.
Oh yeah.
We had calls. I had calls from we had 5 kids during that same time frame that got drafted to the NHL that had come in our program, and I probably had 12 other general managers or head scouts or regional scouts call me from different NHL teams. And because they go back to midget to find out, I said, they're not calling Steve Crowell to find out, is he good enough? Do I think he's good enough to play for the Carolina Hurricanes or whatever? They know that. They've determined that wherever he's playing now, whether it's Cornell or Halifax Mooseheads. What they want to know is what was he like at our level in the dressing room? How was he with the coaches? How was he with his teammates? What did he have leadership abilities? All that. What was he like when you went on the road? Was he the guy sneaking out trying to break curfews? They know what those kids had for breakfast before they draft them. But they all asked me like 3 or 4 questions, but there was probably 6 different questions. But they all asked me the same question. They all asked one question that was identical. What can you tell me about mom and dad? And when it came to the Barons, I didn't coach Justin, but I know the parents from coaching the other guy, and you couldn't meet a nicer, supportive, pair of parents for a young player to grow up in the game. And that's, I look at Zach Sill that I had in Cole Harbour.
Did you have him in Truro as well? So?
Well, I didn't have him. He was with Sean Evans.
Okay, yeah.
I drafted him as a territorial pick,
Yeah.
but his mom and dad were just salt of the earth people, and that he wasn't given anything extra. There was no $500 sticks. He had to rough it out a few times, but they did not stick their nose in once to say, well, you should be playing with this guy or should be on that power play unit, or just let your son, just give him the support that he needs. I always say that 2 things you should tell your kids going to the rink, work hard and have fun, right? And if you start interjecting, but you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do that, it generally doesn't work as a general rule.
It's funny how those 2 simple rules still apply today. Work hard, have fun. So generic, but just so true.
Again, I go back to Martin St. Louis, like the young players on that team right now, on the Canadians, love him because he's almost like a dad figure too. He's telling them how are they going to have fun, how to enjoy the game. Of course, winning will help, but they're in a different phase right now where they're rebuilding for the future. But all of the players, almost to a man, are telling the outside world how fun it is. They're still really competitive, but he's really competitive, but he's making the game fun. He's showing them things and teaching them, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Relatable to life, the game of hockey.
Everything
you're talking about relates to life.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to just be hockey. That's great.
Yeah.
How much time are we at?
55.
Moving 55. Jesus, you talk, Steve. Moving into playoffs. I don't want to bring up your record. I don't want to jinx anything. Moving in, what's the mentality right now in the room? I know these teams that do well, not that they get too confident, but moving into a scenario where they have to win or die, what do you think the mood is like in the room right now? Do you think they're confident, a little nervous? What's the... Well,
they're certainly playing the right way.
Okay.
They've got we have one of the faster teams in the league, and we couldn't use that early in the year because fear makes you slow down. But they're over that now. They're past that, and now it's really, it's the playoffs ramp up a little bit now. There's everything changes a little bit in the playoffs.
All nervous energy.
Yeah, and it's like the NHL. The best round in the NHL playoffs is round one, and everybody. It doesn't matter whether you have 50 points or you got 15 points. It doesn't matter. You have 0 when you start in the playoffs, and all you need is a hot goalie and a couple of breaks. And the next thing you know, you're down a game and pressure's on.
The next thing
so we'll see. We'll see how these young kids. They certainly for one of the youngest teams that's ever played in this league, for them to do what they've done in the second half of this season is incredible. And they surprise you every night you come to the rink. And like I say, we're tickled pink at where they are. It's I don't know. I guess the playoffs are a different animal. Last year we had a veteran team, a lot of 17-year-olds, and we lost. We were finished in second place. We lost to the 7th place team.
Yeah,
that's playoffs. Hot goalie and a team that was fighting for everything. And our guys didn't handle it well. Even with that, we lost in 5 games.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
maybe the shoe's on the other foot this year.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. And we appreciate you as well for having us along for the ride over these years. Like we love going to the Zatzman Sportsplex and stream, and so thank you.
Yeah.
And I want what?
No.
And I want to I want to thank you for coming on as well. We appreciate it. We got to wrap it up. I know we could talk for another hour probably, but that's why you're going to come back maybe after the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll come with you to Atlantics, Provincials, whatever it is, and we'll figure it out.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I know just speaking for you guys, you've come a long way in a few years, right from your trip out west there with the Max, and and then where you are now, and this fancy studio and
fancy. It's never been called. It's been called a lot of things. Not fancy. I'll take it though.
Yeah, it's all good. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, Steve. Everyone listening, thank you very much for tuning in. This is going to come out Friday, so enjoy your weekend, have fun, work hard, and we'll see you around the rink. We're out. Peace.